I didn't react when they said it. Not a blink. Not a breath. I just stood there in the doorway of my sister's living room, watching my parents avoid my eyes like I was an inconvenience they were finally tired of pretending to love. "Don't come to the winter reunion," my father said, his voice steady in a way only indifference can be. "It'll be less complicated." Complicated. That was the word that sliced through me. Not with pain, pain had burned out years ago, but with a clean, cold understanding. I nodded once. They mistook it for obedience. It was preparation. I drove back to the apartment I barely called home anymore. The walls were bare. My parents kept most of my childhood belongings, insisting they'd store them safely. Really, they just didn't want a room that reminded anyone I existed. The moment I stepped inside, I didn't collapse. I didn't even sigh. I pulled my old duffel bag from the closet and set it on the bed. Maybe I had been waiting for this moment longer than I admitted. It wasn't always like this. There was a time I believed my parents were respectable. Not kind, not affectionate, but respectable. Our house always looked flawless in photos. Our family presented itself with polished smiles, perfect lines, perfect reputations. I learned young that image mattered more than I ever would. I wasn't raised with tenderness, I was raised with rules. Speak softly. Don't take up space. Don't embarrass us. And most importantly, be grateful, even when there's nothing to be grateful for. For years, I obeyed. Straight A's, scholarships, good posture, polite nods. I became their silent trophy, good enough to brag about, never good enough to love. The shift began 3 weeks before the winter reunion. My sister, Marla, called without meaning to include me on speakerphone. I heard my mother's voice in the background, sharp as ever. "She always makes things awkward. You know how she is. It's better if she just sits this one out." Marla didn't defend me. She laughed. Then came the second blow. My father talking to one of his old friends in the foyer when he thought I couldn't hear. If she wants to live on her own, she can handle her own bills. No more help. No more support. They acted like I'd asked for anything. Like I hadn't spent years pretending I didn't need them. And then, the final fracture. The night before they told me to stay away, I found a stack of printed papers on the kitchen counter. A reunion seating plan. My name wasn't on the chart. Not even at the kids' table. In the corner, in my mother's neat handwriting. "If she shows up uninvited, redirect her outside." Redirect. Like I was a misdelivered package. I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. Something colder settled in, clarity. I didn't confront them. Confrontation is emotional. I was done offering them anything emotional. Instead, I opened the drawer where they kept miscellaneous paperwork and pulled out the folder they'd forgotten I still had access to, the legal documents from 3 years ago when they'd needed my credit to co-sign their loan. They had never taken my name off. Mistake number 1. They'd added my email to their event accounts for organizational support. Mistake number 2. And they'd left me responsible for the financial planning of the reunion when they didn't understand the online system. Mistake number 3. Revenge doesn't always need screaming. Sometimes it needs a login screen. By midnight, I had removed my information, rescinded permissions, and downloaded a full record of my financial contributions over the years, evidence they could never twist. Then I drafted my message to the extended family group chat. Simple. Undeniable. The winter reunion at my parents' home is canceled. They requested my absence, so I'm honoring it. Please make alternate plans. I didn't elaborate. Silence does the heavy lifting. People fill the gaps with their own judgments. Theirs would be deserved. Before sunrise, I walked through my parents' house one last time. Not to remember, but to let go. In the dining room, my mother had already laid out the silverware, the centerpiece of evergreen branches and berries, the gold-rimmed plates polished to perfection. They cared more about decorations than their daughter. On the table, I placed a large envelope. Inside, copies of texts where they mocked me. Notes proving they excluded me on purpose. Financial statements showing everything I paid for. A document officially withdrawing my name from their loan. And a letter. Just one paragraph. You didn't want me at your reunion. You didn't want me in your house. You didn't want me in your family. So consider this my gift. My absence. Effective immediately, I resign from the position of your child. I placed my house key on top. A tiny clink. A final punctuation mark. By the time they woke, I was already miles away. Calls poured in. Some confused. Some angry. Some panicked. I didn't answer. By evening, the tone shifted. Regret. Apologies. Excuses. I ignored those too. You can't apologize your way out of intentional cruelty. When I unlocked the door to my small apartment, a strange quiet flooded my chest. Heavy. Freeing. They always warned me not to embarrass them. I didn't. They did that themselves. And the best gift I ever gave us all was leaving. Because leaving wasn't losing. Leaving was choosing myself.